Hello, welcome to the lesson on complex fractions. Complex fractions are fractions within fractions, okay? So, the steps for simplifying a complex fraction: you have to determine the lowest common denominator of all the little fractions in this big complex problem. Multiply each of the little fractions by the common denominator over 1. Make sure that you're catching all the terms in there. So, it should eliminate all the little fractions. Then you can factor and simplify. Okay? Let's take a look at an example. Number 1, the lowest common denominator is k. So I have k over 1 times 2 over k over k over 1 times 1 plus k over 1 times 2 over k. So I've taken each of these three terms and multiplied them by k over 1. So let's see what happens. Here the k's cancel. So on top, I just have a 2. K times 1 is k, plus, here the k's cancel, 2. 2 over k plus 2, that cannot be simplified. That's the answer. That's the simplified fraction. Let's look at number 2. LCD is 7x. So 7x over 1 times 1 over 7 minus 7x over 1 times 1 over x. 7x over 1 times x over 7, 7 not 8, I don't know why I wrote 8, x over 7 minus 7x over 1 times 7 over x. So we've taken 7x over 1 and multiplied by each of the four terms. So here the 7's cancel, and you get x. Over here the x's cancel, and you get minus 7. Right? Don't forget that. You have to bring the sign over. Here the 7's cancel, and you have x times x is x squared, minus the x's cancel. 7 times 7 is 49. Well, x squared minus 49 is the difference of two perfect squares. So you have 7 minus x minus 7 over x plus 7 times x minus 7. Okay. The x minus 7's cancel. One time they divide into each other. Your final answer is 1 over x plus 7. You've got to remember, when you're dividing out, the x minus 7 divides into itself one time. Do not forget that. You don't get a 0. When you're dividing, you're not getting a 0, you're getting the 1. Here on number 3, your lowest common denominator is x squared. So x squared over 1 times 1 minus x squared over 1 times 2 over x over x squared over 1 times 1 minus x squared over 1 times 4 over x squared. Okay, so I've multiplied x squared over 1 times each of the four terms that were in there. So x squared times 1 is x squared. X squared goes into itself once, and you're left with an x. So you have x squared minus 2x. That's your numerator. The denominator, you have x squared minus the x squareds divide out, and x squared minus 4. So now on the bottom you've got the difference of two perfect squares. X plus 2, x minus 2. On the numerator though, you have a greatest common factor of x. When you factor that out, you have x minus 2. So now what happens here, the x minus 2's divide into each other once, and you get a final answer of x over x plus 2. Okay. Okay, so the basic premise is you're going to be multiplying each of the small fractions by the lowest common denominator over 1. When you do that, all the little fractions drop out, and then you may need to factor and simplify. Okay, so this has been the lesson on complex fractions, and this lesson has been brought directly to you from my dining room table.